miracle of birth is more of a cruel joke when you're born a squirrel. A tiny, pink, hairless, wiggling little disappointment, blind as a bat, ears sealed shut like nature's way of saying, "Trust me, kid, you don't want to hear what's coming." From the very moment you enter this world, life makes it painfully clear that you've drawn the short straw. You're crammed in a nest with your equally pathetic, wrinkly siblings, all of you looking like undercooked chicken nuggets. Your mom, who, let's be honest, isn't winning any Mother of the Year awards, spends most of her time out trying not to die so she can bring back whatever half-eaten scraps of food she can find. And what do? Nothing. You just sit there, helpless, waiting for your body to remember that growing fur is kind of an important step in survival. And let's talk about your home for a second. It's not a warm, cozy nursery with lullabies playing in the background. Nope. You live in a nest, which is really just a pile of sticks and leaves shoved into the crook of a tree. If your mom's a real overachiever, maybe she lined it with some stolen insulation or shredded paper. Fancy. But all it takes is one strong wind, one curious cat, or one particularly ambitious hawk, and congratulations. You're either plummeting toward your untimely demise or becoming someone's midday snack. But let's say, against all odds, you survive your infancy. Your fur grows in, your eyes finally open, and you get to take in the world for the first time. And oh boy, what a view. It's mostly just trees. Trees, and more trees. If you're lucky, you might spot a trash can. That's basically the squirrel version of a 5-star buffet. But the real fun begins when you realize that you now have to learn the single most important skill of your miserable little existence. Climbing. Now, climbing might look easy when you're watching an experienced squirrel do it, but when you're a fresh, uncoordinated little fur ball with no concept of gravity, it's a disaster waiting to happen. You try to climb up a branch, your tiny claws barely finding a grip, and just when you think you've got it, bam, you slip, you flail, and you plummet like a tiny furry meteor. If you're lucky, you land on another branch. If you're not, well, splat. And if you somehow manage to avoid falling, congratulations. Now you get to experience the sheer joy of being chased out of every tree by older, meaner squirrels who've already claimed their territories. And let's not forget about the predators. Oh, the predators. Hawks, owls, snakes, cats, dogs, humans. Basically, if it has teeth or claws, it's probably interested in eating you. Every time you step outside, it's like playing an unwinnable game of Will I Die Today? Spoiler alert. The answer is always probably. But let's pretend for a moment that you're one of the lucky ones who doesn't get plucked off a branch by a hawk, or mistaken for a chew toy by an over-enthusiastic golden retriever. Now you get to enjoy the daily grind of being a squirrel, aka a full-time, unpaid, high-stress job with zero benefits. The job description? Find food. Eat food. Bury food. Forget where you buried food. Repeat. Ah yes, the legendary squirrel memory. Humans like to think we're clever little hoarders, but here's the ugly truth. Half of the food we store for later is never seen again. Ever. We bury acorns like we're running some kind of underground stock market, but do we remember where we put them? Absolutely not. It's like nature played a cruel joke and made us the ultimate absent-minded investors. We spend our entire lives in a state of mild panic, constantly searching for food we've already found once but can never seem to find again. The only silver lining? At least when we forget, it sometimes grows into a tree. So technically, we're unpaid landscapers too. And speaking of food, let's talk about what's actually on the menu. It's not like we have a cozy little fridge stocked with pizza and ice cream. No, our diet consists of whatever we can find. Nuts? Sure, if we're lucky. Fruits? Maybe if some human was kind enough to drop their half-eaten apple. Bugs? Hey, sometimes you gotta do what you gotta do. Trash? If it smells remotely edible, it's fair game. That's right, some of us have been reduced to dumpster diving like tiny, fluffy raccoons. Of course, nothing in a squirrel's life can be simple, so even eating is a high-stakes gamble. You ever tried cracking open an acorn with your teeth while keeping an eye out for predators at the same time? It's like trying to enjoy a meal in a horror movie where the killer could show up at any second. You take one wrong bite, and suddenly, there's an owl swooping down with murder in its eyes. And you better hope you can run, because let's be honest, your tiny little claws are about as useful as plastic utensils in a knife fight. And then there's winter. Oh, winter. The time of year when squirrels truly learn the meaning of suffering. You think finding food is hard now? Just wait until everything is covered in 3 feet of snow, and the only thing left to eat is whatever scraps you manage to hoard, assuming you can even find them. Meanwhile, humans are inside their warm, cozy homes, sipping hot chocolate and watching Netflix, while you're out here freezing your tiny tail off, praying that one of your forgotten acorns is actually where you think it is. Spoiler alert. It's not. And just when you think you might actually be getting the hang of this whole being a squirrel thing, nature finds new ways to remind you that your life is an absolute joke. For starters, let's talk about roads. You ever tried crossing one? Because let me tell you, it's the closest thing a squirrel gets to extreme sports. You see a car coming, your little brain screams run. But then halfway across, you panic, second-guess yourself, and freeze like a tiny, confused deer in headlights. And what do humans do? They honk, they swerve, they scream things that are probably very unkind. But do they understand that we are simply victims of our own terrible instincts? Number. They just roll their eyes and move on with their comfortable seatbelt-wearing lives. And if the cars don't get you, the humans will. Oh yes, let's talk about them for a second. These towering two-legged creatures are unpredictable at best, and downright evil at worst. Some of them leave out food, which seems nice, until you realize that food is in a metal box, and the second you step inside, bam, you're trapped, caught, doomed to be relocated, which is just a fancy way of saying dumped in some unfamiliar nightmare where all the other squirrels hate you. And then there's the ultimate insult. The ones who think we're pests. Like, excuse me, this is our world too. But no, apparently, digging up their flower beds or breaking into their bird feeders is some kind of crime. So what do? They chase us with brooms, set up ridiculous obstacle courses in their backyards just to laugh at our suffering, and some of them, get this, actually grease the poles so we can't climb. That's right. They actively sabotage us. We are just out here trying to live, and they turn it into some kind of sitcom. But despite all of this, we keep going. We wake up every day, stretch our tiny limbs, and throw ourselves into another round of try not to die. We leap through trees, we steal snacks, we outrun dogs. We survive. And maybe, just maybe, if we're lucky enough to make it through the constant stress, hunger, and near-death experiences, we get to grow old. Not that it's much of a reward. You think being a young squirrel is bad? Try being an old one. Your reflexes slow down, your fur gets patchy, and your once mighty leaps turn into pathetic half-hearted hops that land you right on your face. The younger squirrels take over, and suddenly, you're the cranky old guy in the neighborhood who just wants everyone to get off his branch. And then one day, you wake up, stretch, and realize, this is it. You've survived everything. You've outlived the hawks, the owls, the cars, the greased poles. You are a battle-hardened, acorn-hoarding legend. And then, just as you take a moment to appreciate your incredible life story, bam, you get hit by a falling pine cone. Because if there's one rule to being a squirrel, it's this. Nature will always find a way to make sure you never, ever win.